Welcome back, guys. Welcome to my channel called Construction Skills Online. This week we're going to be doing one practical exercise. We've been doing a lot of theory work for the past 2 weeks. So now we're going to be doing a practical exercise as far as calculating a tender is concerned. So for our first exercise, we're going to assume that a client wants you to cast 20 MPa concrete on a mass foundation. Let's assume that you were going to build a house, someone is going to build a house, and then the main contractor asks you as a subcontractor to pour the foundation, and then he's going to do the top structure. So he gives you the BOQ. These are the quantities: 368 cubic meters of 20 MPa concrete on a mass foundation. That is a task that we have to do. Okay, let's get right to it. The first thing we need to know when you're pricing tenders or doing any tendering estimating, it is important to know the daily production. What do I mean by daily production? Daily production is the amount of time it takes you to execute a certain task over a period of 1 day. That is so important because it's going to guide you. That is what's going to enable you to accurately put an amount on a certain item. Without knowing your daily production, it is difficult to calculate the rate. You will see what I mean as we get into this example. So now let's assume here, you the contractor, you know that from previous experience that a team of 8 laborers using one concrete mixer and there's a section leader, these guys can produce 8 cubic meters of concrete a day. So you've got 8 guys, laborers, you got a section leader, their supervisor, and you got a concrete mixer. And the production for 1 day, for 1 day's work, which is anything for about 8 to 9 hours, that is now 8 cubic meters of concrete that they can pour. So now we're going to first look at the material cost. Now 1 cubic meter of concrete consists of cement 300 kilograms, which is approximately 6 bags, 0.65 cubic meters of sand, which is about, in construction terms, 2 wheelbarrows, 0.85 cubic meters of 19 millimeter stone, and that's approximately 2.5 wheelbarrows. And then you're going to need some water. But now the amount of water you're going to put in will depend on the consistency that you want for your mix. By consistency, I mean how workable would you like your concrete to be? Would you like it to be a little bit stiff, or you want it to be more on the wet side? That will determine the amount of water that you're going to pour in. Okay, so now we're going to do the cost of the material. Firstly, the cement. We said for 1 cubic meter we're going to need 300 kilograms of cement. Now let's assume that nowadays a cement bag costs about 95 rand for a 50 kg bag. So you got 300 kilograms in total, divided by 50 kilograms per bag. That is equal to 6 bags. So for 1 cubic meter of 20 MPa concrete, you will use 6 bags of cement, and 6 bags times 95 rand per bag gives you 570 rand, which will be the cost of cement for pouring 1 cube of concrete. Your sand, we said your sand is 0.65 cubes, and that we said was about what, 2 wheelbarrows. Now let's assume that your sand is about 300 rand per cubic meter load. So to get their cost for the sand, you say 0.65 cubes times 300, which is 300 rand per 1 cube. So for 0.65 cubes, it's 195 rand. Your stone, the quantity of stone for 1 cubic meter of concrete is 0.85 cubes, which is about 2.5 to 3 wheelbarrows. If we assume that the cost for 1 cubic meter of stone is 550 rands, you will have 0.85 times 550, which is 467 rand 50 for that. So the total cost of the material per cubic meter of concrete is the cement, which was 570 rands, plus the sand, 195 rands, plus the stone, 465 rand 50 cents. So your total cost of material for 1 cube is equal to 1,232 rand 50 cents. So now the total daily cost of material would be 1,232 rand 50 per cube times 8 cubes. Remember, we said that in one day they produce 8 cubes. They're not producing 1 cube, but they're producing 8 cubes. So previously we had the cost for only 1 cube, but now we know that each and every day they're producing 8 cubes. So we want to have the total cost of the material that is used over one day. So it's that 1,232 and 50 cents times 8 cubes, which is 9,860 rands for the material alone. Next, we're going to be looking at the plant and equipment that you're going to use. Let's assume that you're going to be using your mixer. Your concrete mixer is 800 rand a day, and your dumper that you will use for taking the concrete from the mixer and laying it on the foundation. The dumper works quicker, especially over long distances. Rather use the dumper than use wheelbarrows. It works so much quicker. So if you assume that your dumper is 900 rand a day, and then your poker vibrator is 700 rand a day, that gives you a total cost of the plant and equipment 800 plus 900 plus 700, that is now 2,400. Let's look at the labor cost. We said the concrete team consists of 8 laborers. Assume that each laborer gets paid 180 rand a day. So that's 180 times 8. That's 1,440 rand per day. You're going to pay your 8 guys. And then the one who's going to operate the mixer, 195 rand a day. And then your supervisor or section leader is 250 rand a day. So your total labor cost for the day would be 1,440 plus 195 plus 250. That gives you a total of 1,885 rands. All right. Now let's look at the last small item, which is the fuel cost. Now with the fuel cost, we're only going to look at the fuel of the mixer, because that's where a lot of the fuel goes, because the mixer is constantly running. The cost of the fuel for the dumper would be really very negligible, because it's not always running up and down, and it's going over a very short distance. So the mixer uses about 2.5 liters of diesel per hour. And let's assume that the diesel at the moment, say it's costing about 13 rand 60 an hour, give or take, depending if you're in the coast or inland. So the diesel is 13 rand 60 per liter times 2.5 liters per hour times 8 hours, which is your full day. You worked over 8 hours. So your fuel cost is 272 rand. So now what we're going to do, we have to look at the total daily cost of material, of plant, of labor, of fuel. Material plus plant plus labor plus fuel. So we had our material was 9,860. Our plant was 2,400. The labor component was 1,885, and the fuel component was 272. When you add these four together, you get a total of 14,417 rand. So what is this figure? This is the total daily cost of your material, your plant, your labor, and your fuel. Now remember, we said that these guys, our labor team, they produce 8 cubic meters of concrete per day. That's their production. And remember, we said previously, we said that a unit rate is equal to total daily cost divided by total production. That is going to give you what we call a rate. So total daily cost, 14,417, divide that by 8 cubes per day, and that gives you a rate of 1,802 Rand 13 cents per cube. It really is that easy, guys, to calculate your tender rates. You just have to know how to break it down. You just have to know. The important thing is you just have to know your daily production, because that is key. The material component, you can easily quantify that. But now what will determine if your rate is high or low is your daily production. For example, if my team was only producing 6 tubes a day, do you see now that this figure would be much higher, because 14,417 divided by 6 is going to be higher than 14,417 divided by 8. So now if you've got a big amount of concrete, that rate can really get big. So it's important to be sure of your daily production, because it becomes the key. It is what differentiates tendering number 1 from tendering number 2, because it's the only variable, because the other components, they might stay the same. The labor cost, the plant, the material cost, the fuel cost, they might be the same for the various tendering entities. But now your production is where you really got to be sharpening your pencils. But now this doesn't end there. This is just the rate. There is no we have not put any P's and G's here. We haven't put any profit markup on this. So now we're just going to do a very simple way of putting in your profit and your overheads. Let's assume that on this particular work operation, your overheads will be 10% of the daily cost. This is normally determined by when you take the total value of your supervision. That is now, say, the guy who's managing the job, not the supervisor who's the section leader, the guy who's managing the job, normally we'd call that person a site agent or a foreman. You look at his cost, you look at the bakkie, the cost of the bakkie, and you're looking at, if you've got a clerk on site, an admin person, you're looking at those costs as well. Those are the costs which are not necessarily in the unit rate themselves. These are called the P's and G's, the preliminary and general, but they're also known as your overheads. So let's assume that for casting that foundation, 368 cubes, your overhead cost is about 10%. Let's assume that from this you're wanting a profit of 7% from this job. There's various ways of determining profit. You also look at availability of work. You look at the type of work. There's various factors, and you look at the amount of tenderers. If there's not a lot of work for you as a contractor, you're going to go in at lower profit margins. But if you have an abundance of work, you'll go in very high, because you don't really want that job. So if you are lucky to get that job, then you know that your profit margin is high. So the profit is something that you will have to determine. Some of the things that influence your profit, obviously, but rather, one of the things that you use your profit for is, at the end of the project, you might, if there's a couple of partners, you might split up your dividends, or you might use that profit, invest it in the business, or let it be part of your cash flow, and then you can use it for your next project. Or you can use the profit perhaps to, like I said, to invest in the business, whether it's to buy a piece of plant or whatever the case is. So you have to determine your profit. That's different from the from their overheads. The overheads are determined by your site supervision personnel. Do you have a safety officer? Do you have a site agent? How many vehicles do you have on site? Those are their overheads, and they would normally be fixed. But now your profit, you can vary your profit. It just depends on you and how much work you have, etc., etc. So now the total of 7% plus 10%, that's 17%. So we could then say our initial rate of 1,802 rand 13 cents times 1,17, this is another way of saying times 17%, is equal to 2,126 rand 51 cents. So this would be the price you would submit in your tender document for 20 MPa concrete. Now let's take this figure and put it in our tender document. Remember, we're doing a 20 MPa concrete foundation. We said the quantity is 368 cubic meters. Now this is our rate, 2,126 rand 51 cents. So this rate times quantity will give you the amount. So the total amount you're going to submit on your tender is 782,555 rand and 68 cents. That would be your tender amount. That would be what you would bill the client. That is what you will say to the client, I can do this work for so much. And now that includes everything. It includes your supervision, it includes your profit. So everything is taken care of there. So guys, I hope you've learned from that lesson. I hope it was rather fruitful. I hope you got something out of it. Stay tuned for the next lesson. In the next lesson, what I will do is I will show you how to calculate your overheads. I'll go step by step to see how you get to that 10%. The one that we said, let's assume that our overheads are 10%. I will show you exactly how to calculate your overheads and what to include in your overheads. And I will also show you then, calculating your overheads and calculating your profit. So that's it for this week, guys. I hope that you really learned a lot out of this. Remember, you can throw in a comment there, say if this is helping you, and you could even make suggestions, or you could even drop an email on anything that you want to have assistance in. I can help you calculate. This is what I do. I'm an estimator. This is what I do. So I'll be more than willing to help you with as far as pricing your tenders and packaging your tenders and putting it together. All right. And that's it. Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers for now. Bye.